I really appreciate you taking the time. Is it a good morning, aside from having to talk to media elite?
It's always fine to talk to media, and it's nice to see you. I'm just sitting in my lounge on a rainy Monday, and which it usually is in Northwest England anyway. So
fair. Well, longtime listener of your music, and it's really great to see that you can do 2 nights of Brooklyn Steel here in New York, because there's been ups and downs in your career. Mm-hmm. You've always been turning out great art, whether it's been under your name, OMD, Atomic Kitten, etc. But when did you start to realize that you were going to be okay, that things were not dependent on a chart hit?
I think it was really after we reformed. The crazy thing is now that the band has been reformed for longer than we were formed in the first place before we broke up. I think, about 15 years ago, we just really decided that we wanted to play live again, and we enjoyed that for a couple of years. And then we thought, are we now just a tribute band to ourselves? We're just going to play, only going to play the old songs and never do anything new. So we dared to try and do some new material. We knew that basically we weren't going to sell the millions that we had done in the past. I know what it's like with an older band. You think, do I really need a 15th album by this band? So we were doing it for ourselves. The very same reason why we started in the first place when we were 16.
Yeah. Well, you make a very good point there about reunion albums, where sometimes you go, why did they do that? Did they owe 1 or 2 albums on the deal? And there was a really sweet advance if they did that. In your case, I just got the vibe as, let's see if we can do it for the love of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely the reason we did it. I mean, I think that it took a while to kind of get the creative wheels rolling again. It had been a long time since we'd worked together, Paul and I, but I think the important thing was that we said to ourselves, we are only going to do this if we think we can deliver quality music, because the kind of the raison d'etre behind Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark in the first place was we were supposed to do something new, something original, something of quality. We accidentally ended up in the charts. We didn't think we were ever going to have hits, but it's now been a 43.5-year rolling accident. I'm not complaining, but the important thing was that we believed that we'd only do it if we could do really great music. And it's easy to delude yourself, but I think that the response from the journalists and from the fans alike has been really positive. So I think we have delivered good stuff.
Yeah, I compare you guys not sonically, but in terms of work ethic and ethos and intentions to Devo, where they didn't set out to be commercial at all, but a couple of fluke hits, and then people went, oh, this is kind of poppy. We like this. And then years later, people still want to see that while the group is just being themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Thank you. I'll take that analogy with Devo. They're a great band. I mean, their first album was one of my all-time favorite ever albums. I think you if you do what you believe in, and you're fortunate enough then that it resonates with enough people that you get a career out of it, I think that is really, that is a definition of success, to basically to be able to write your own rules, but then have people enjoy it enough that you can make a living out of it. It's perfect.
Well, something I alluded to earlier is that you found success writing for other artists. And I see there's kind of 2 schools of thought with people who are successful songwriters, which I'm calling you one of those. You didn't say as a successful songwriter. I said that about you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so some of them you'll find if there's 15 songs on the album, they wrote 15 songs. And then there's others that have to write like 50 to get to 15. Which have you been over the years?
I think in the early days, when we were exploring all the time and everything was new and fresh and exciting, I think we had a pretty good strike rate. I wouldn't say it was 15 out of 15, but it was probably more than 50% of things were were good enough to go on an album or be used. I mean, one of the fun things we always used to do was actually that once we'd completed the album, we knew what the singles were. The B-sides were where we just had carte blanche. We could do anything we wanted to. But yeah, it's I think we trust ourselves as songwriters to know when we've done a good job and to not release something that we think isn't right. And one of the great things now is, of course, we're working on computers. Everything stays in the box all the time. So you can always go back to it exactly where you left it and go, okay, well, this bit's working. Let's get rid of that bit. So, you know, you can keep stuff in your computer and recycle continuously till you get it right, you know.
Well, you owned a recording studio, I think, before most artists knew to own a recording studio. Did you do that for investment purposes, or was it actually where you were doing your writing and demoing?
Basically, we were budgeting for failure. We thought these crazy people are going to give us all this money. There's no way we're going to sell any records, because we still thought we were more experimental than pop. And so we thought, right, when we make a record and nobody buys it and we get dropped, at least we'll have more to show for it than just a couple of 2-inch reels of tape that we've given somebody else 40 grand to record in their studio. So we built our own studio, budgeting for failure. But to be honest, because there was only 2 of us in the band, we always had to write onto tape. The tape recorder was always the extra pairs of hands, you know, so we always worked that way. We always worked onto tape as a writing method.
The almighty thing where it's a band name, yet 1 or 2 people. So you made it work. The number of groups that I love that are really just 2 people, I think it's more of that than not, that there's hired guns involved. And did you know outright that that was something that could be done well? For example, most musicians kind of don't know the business. They're either creative people or people that are there just along for the ride. How did you know outright, 2 people instead of band?
It was completely a question of circumstances. Paul and I live very close to each other. I mean, literally like 800 yards apart from each other, either side of the main street that went through our suburb. And we had this kind of symbiotic relationship. I bought the German import records with my paper round money, but he had made a stereo because he was into electronics, and I only had a kind of crappy mono thing that my mother owned. So I took the records around to his house and we fell in love with German electronic music together. And then we kind of had this crazy idea to kind of try to do it. Now, most of our mates in the 70s were into, you know, Genesis, the Eagles, Pink Floyd. And frankly, they thought what we were doing wasn't music.
Right.
So really, we just were a 2-piece because nobody else wanted to play with us. And so we got a tape recorder when we finally went on stage as a customer moves of the duck. We borrowed our friend's 4-track, and that was just the way it was. Nobody believed in us. We didn't believe in us. We just dared to call ourselves this crazy name to do 1 gig. That was it. It was just going to be do 1 gig. Say, we've done it live. We played live. Now we can go to university or whatever, you know?
So everything I've asked you about sounds like a totally organic thing where you weren't thinking that far ahead. The studio, the configuration of the band, how you write things, the reunion, etc.
Yeah, we just make it up as we go along and we keep landing on our feet.
Yeah. Hey, I love to see a cool success story like what I'm hearing right here. Now, a dumb question for you is, when the band OMD came out with How Bizarre, what was your feeling on all that? Because I never saw that really documented. I just would have assumed that they would have been shut down immediately based on like, hey, you're violating our trademark there.
Well, no, they wouldn't, because we had a D and they had a C. So, you know, and it was a really good little song. It's a really catchy song. You know, had they gone on to be massive for decades, it might have been a bit weird that there were 2 bands with very similar 3 initials. But no, it's not a problem at all.
And unfortunately, I think he passed on while it was a #1 hit.
I didn't know that. Oh, Lord. Okay.
Yeah, or at least the fake news media gave me that. But anyway, back to you. So these 2 shows at Brooklyn Steel in New York. how far ahead are you planned for the future? Now, I'm not saying give me all the exclusives, but some artists I'm speaking with go now, like, I don't plan anything more than 2 months in advance because everything could be canceled. And then, meanwhile, Pavarotti, when he was alive, was like 6 years in advance booked.
I mean, we've obviously seen completely different musical landscape in the last 2 years with COVID.
Yeah.
And like many other artists, I think we're kind of playing catch up. Our schedule is just in complete disarray. We've got things that have been postponed for 2 years. We've got new things coming in. We were supposed to come and play in the States some considerable time ago. We had this tour lined up, ready to go. And just before it was going to be announced for the fall of 2020, COVID came in, because what we're effectively doing when we're coming around in April and May in the States and Canada is we're playing our postponed 40th anniversary souvenir tour, but we're now into the 43rd year, so it's but we're just really excited. I mean, it gives us a chance to come back, and I mean, this is the first time in 4 years that we're doing our own headline tour in North America, so that's going to be great. We're really excited. Looking forward to Brooklyn Steel. I've heard great things about the venue, but we've never played there before, so I'm really looking forward to that. And the other great thing, actually, Darren, is that we're finally going to bring some of our European stage set and lights, because we've never been able to afford to do that. In fact, we can't afford to do it still, but I just told the manager she's not going to earn any commission on this tour. It's going to break even. We're bringing some lights. So.
Yeah, that's a really common kind of thing, where when you have a UK arena artist and they're going to tour the States, you kind of go over that tour routing where you go, well, there's a lot of people from the UK in England. In New York, Los Angeles, Miami. Okay, those shows are going to be the big shows. And then what do we do? Do we do St. Louis, or do we just do the coasts? And then, hey, the way that it would be a profit center for the UK arena tour here in the States, little over break even unless we kill it on merchandise. So, you have that artistic endeavor that you have to figure out, and it sounds like you figured it out.
Well, I think like a lot of UK bands, I mean, we've always been bigger kind of round the edges of the US, not in the middle. And you think, if we're gonna go across Oklahoma and Missouri, and where are we going to play? Are we going to, if we're playing to 5,000 people in LA and New York, will we get 500 in the middle? It's quite, and also, generally, you're doing venues that have their own lights and their own sound systems. You're just bringing your own desks and backline. So it's a question of like, well, if we can get it all in the trailer on the back of the bus, then yeah. If we can't, then suddenly we're taking a truck, and this is going to punch another $200,000 into the budget, with an extra driver and a truck for a month and a half. So it's, most people don't think about these things. They just like, why are you not bringing your whole system over? It's like, well, because if we did, we'd have to charge twice as much for the ticket, or we'd lose a load of money. So it's, listen, we came back to America 10 years ago, really on a wing and a prayer. Paul and I put our hands into our pockets to guarantee a tour that was at the time was going to lose money. It broke even because we just thought it's a lost leader. We got to get back into. We cannot just ignore the United States and Canada.
Right. Well, lost leader done well. That's what we've learned here. And my two last questions before I let you go. The first one is a random one. And of course, we talked about how the punk dynamics of what you did and the German influence. But any dealings with Van Halen over the years? And any run-ins with David Lee Roth or Van Halen?
No. I mean, I have met quite a lot of people over the years, but absolutely no. Where did that one come from? That was out of left field.
Because I'm working on a book about David Lee Roth, and I figured, hey, how can I shoehorn Andy from into that?
I mean, listen, you could shoehorn me into a ZZ Top series of anecdotes, which most people are like, OMD and ZZ Top, but we have a connection. But
does that have to do with how ZZ Top got a little synthy in the 80s with using the new gear?
Yeah, we did a very famous and successful TV show in the UK in 1980 called The Old Grey Whistle Test.
Yes.
And they were on one stage in the studio and we were on the other. And I must admit, we were a bunch of surly 20-year-olds who sort of thought we were the future, and they were a bunch of beardy old has-beens on the other stage. But they liked what they saw of us. So not only they used to play our album at their live gigs between bands. They definitely adopted the electronic stuff for the Eliminator album. And Billy and Dusty said, yeah, man, we watched you, and you know the way you swung your bass guitar when you danced, we ripped that off for all of our videos. So I was like, oh, okay, there you go. Who knew I influenced ZZ Top so much?
Wow. And I mean, I could technically connect ZZ Top and Van Halen, where the guy who's now playing bass in ZZ Top was the guitar tech for David Lee Roth's Skyscraper tour and was secretly playing guitar behind the amp for Steve Vai during the guitar solo. So it always comes back to David Lee Roth.
That's a tenuous link, but I get it. Yeah, well done. Well done. You got enough detail in there to tie it all together.
I tried. And my last question for you is, do you have a TV recommendation if somebody needs a new show to start watching?
I am the worst person in the world to ask that. I do not binge. I do not do Netflix. I don't watch any fiction whatsoever on television. All I watch is documentary and sport. I used to watch the news, but now I want to throw my shoe at the TV when people like Trump and Boris Johnson come on.
Sure.
But no, basically, you know, I have people telling me that Peaky Blinders is a great series. I don't know if anybody in America gets that.
Yeah, my wife watches that. Yeah, a lot of people watch it. Cool.
But I'm sorry. I've even when I was a kid, the books I read were all information. I crave information. I once dated a girl who was passionate about Shakespeare and Wilde and great works of fiction. And she said, you know, is there anything you want to read in fiction? I said, nah. I said, my life's complicated enough without reading about other people's problems. And she said, wait, you're dismissing all great works of fiction as other people's problems? I'm like, yep.
Yeah, you know, as a creative person, that it comes from somewhere in the head. Well, either way, Andy, thank you for the many years of great music, and hope to see one of these New York gigs soon. In the meantime, just keep up all that greatness.
Thank you very much indeed. Nice to talk to you. And yeah, come down and see us at Brooklyn, and we'll look forward to catching up there. All right.
Likewise.
Cheers,
take care, man.
Bye.
Paltrocast.